In this movie, we're going to take a look at the enumeration column type. The enumeration column type allows us to define a very specific set of values and then only allow data that can be taken from those values to be placed into the column. So we could specify a range of particular words, numbers, or other values that we would want put into a particular column as data. If we go to our sample database and take a look at the complaints table, we're going to take a look at the columns in the complaints table. Now, I created a column called Rage, which is to specify how angry a customer was when they phoned up to complain about our fictitious toy shop. The way that Rage is represented is by a tiny integer. So let's say that's a scale of 1 to 10, which we can use within our tinyInt column type. If, however, we wanted to use a different means of measuring a customer's anger, then we could specify, using an enumeration column type, a set of words that would describe how angry the customer was. Let's take a look at an example of doing just that. Let's alter the complaints table and change the Rage column to the kind of enumeration column we've just been speaking about. So, with the alter table syntax, we have to type the name of the column twice, unless we want to change the column Rage from Rage to something else. In this case, we don't. And we use the ENUM column type, which stands for enumeration. Straight after that, within brackets, we put all the different values that we want to include within the enumeration. At the lowest end, the customer is polite, then aggrieved, irate, furious, abusive. And let's specify that column's going to be not null as well. So we've changed our complaints table. There's no data in there as yet, so let's try and insert some data into our complaints table. We're just going to insert into customer ID and Rage because the complaint ID is auto-incremented, and our details column, we've specified that we put in a default piece of text every time a customer complains, unless we specify something else. So for the purpose of showing how the enumeration column type works, that is the Rage column type, we don't need to put anything into either of those two other columns. So we're specifying here customer ID, let's say customer ID is 1, and the customer is irate. Now irate is one of the values that we specified when we altered the table complaints to reflect the change of Rage's column type. So let's see how that works, having just added that value into the table data. As we can see, the Rage column reflects the change that we requested, and the string RIATE was successfully added. Let's try another insert statement, which shows another way that we can use the enumeration column type. Again, we're just going to enter a customer ID. Let's say that's 3 this time. But now, instead of entering a particular word from the enumeration list, let's just enter an integer into the range column. This works in a very similar way. This time, instead of entering the literal value that we passed to the range column, it will look at the list of enumerated values and select the one according to the index that we just passed. In this case, 1, which will be the first. If you take a look at the list there, the first word we added to the range column was polite. So now if we take a look with a select query at our complaints table, as we can see, the number 1 was interpreted as the first value that we specified as part of the enumerated columns list of valid values, which is polite. However, if we try to insert into the complaints table any value into the range column, if we try and put into the range column any value other than the ones we've specified, let's say that we wanted to say our customer's happy, when we come to run a select query and check whether our data has gone in, we'll see that even though MySQL reported that the query was okay and entered some data into the table, no data was entered into the range column. That's because when an enumerated column receives any data other than the list of valid variables that we specified when the column was created, or altered in this case, it will simply leave the column empty. In our next movie, we're going to look at a very similar kind of column that works in a similar way but with a slight twist. That's the set column.